Anybody want head? It is a new year, new me, and while this is the house of rotary, it is time to build something that is almost equally as cool as a rotary engine. This is the Cosworth XD, and we, almost 2 years ago, went through all the secrets of what it takes to make an IndyCar race engine. This is absolutely a very rare, exciting treat. The guys at Cosworth have given me a lot of guidance on how to rebuild it, and while schedules haven't aligned yet, I brought a new expert in to help me build this motor. He says because he owns a McLaren 12C that he knows how to do everything here because they're basically the same.
Yeah.
The only caveat, this is the uncomfortable reality of the moment, is we took this apart, and these bolts where the shank is smaller than the threads are called torque to yield, meaning that they stretch a little bit, giving every single bolt equivalent amount of clamping force. Just to address the elephant in the room, I believe they're reusable. One other really interesting thing about this motor, on a rotary engine, they use roller bearings. On a piston engine like this one, they use just thrust washer, basically. When you're pushing on a clutch, you're actively pushing on the motor, and something has to fight that. And this little guy right there, this one, goes in right here. It is time to start rebuilding the Cosworth for the IndyCar. And that really actually starts with the whole oil system. This is the whole oil system. It's vacuuming from all of these. But not only does it vacuum each of those, it then sends that oil frothy mix past the other front ones all the way to this area here and spins it in a centrifugal clutch looking thing, and then it separates the oil from the air. You can actually use the solid oil coming off of the bottom of the pan and go straight to a cooler. Every other car, every other road car that I'm aware of does not do this. This puts cold oil back into the tank. We're gonna reassemble this, start getting all these things back together, because once this goes back on the engine, we can really reassemble the Cosworth. There we go. So that puts all of that together. This now plugs in. Away you go. This is the answer to all my dreams. 8 Sleep is here. If you've ever had a place to crash at your shop, you know that during the summer months, especially in California, it gets hot in the shop and it has that residual heat, and when you try to go to sleep, you're burning up. So this is a very functional solution. The 8 Sleep unit that we have at my house has left me wanting something here. Now, what's cool is that 8 Sleep doesn't just have the base unit that can lift your existing mattress, which this mattress is wonderful, but you put this on top of your great mattress that you've already spent money on. This is the Pod 4. Those are the nights I was sleeping at home. These are the nights I was sleeping at the shop. And so now, with the 8 Sleep Pod 4 here, it's about to change. Not only can it go all the way down to 55 degrees and all the way up to 110, that, in my case, will actually save me electricity because I don't have to run my AC unit as hard during the winter months and summer months, back and forth, heating and cooling. All I care about is heating and cooling me. It learns your trends, and one of my favorite things from the unit at home, it will adjust the temperature automatically using the autopilot to get you more of the type of sleep that you need. So if you have a lifestyle like this and want to be like me, head over to 8sleep.com/RobDahm and use the discount code RobDahm to get $350 off your very own Pod 4 Ultra. do I have cool stuff for you guys. Went back to the guy that was selling random parts for the cars.
No way.
The real one.
What?
The same tank is so different. It is mind-blowing, but it confirms the biggest suspicion I had from the beginning. There's the oil feed to the engine, and then this has oil coming out and air coming out. Watch where this goes.
Yes, blow it.
It doesn't fucking go into the tank. I knew that. So the oil coming out of the motor, pressurize this, goes out to the cooler, comes back in from the cooler, and fills in the bottom of the tank. This one, on the other hand, does what the other tank did and goes to up here. This is the official one. We don't have to remake it. It was hidden deeply under suspension components, but like I had these parts and had no idea where they go. Well, now we do. Right there. Huh. Having these O-rings out ultimately caused them to swell a little bit, and so I am going to run with that. This is what's kept my sanity. Everything in here is related to the core of the motor. So if this has anything left, I've done something very wrong. But I do know that these go in next.
These are numbered.
Yeah, I knew that. Okay, so this one's been, oh, look, it says a number right underneath there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I'm glad you, that was a test.
Did that pass?
I think I passed. You tested me. This has a letter. 2. Now we're fucked. This say H. All 3 of these say H.
Oh, that's on the other side.
Okay, they have nothing, so I'm gonna guess that these are the 2 end ones. Here comes essentially the oil pan.
I'm holding my height.
There, I'm down. Inside the oil channels, these 5/16 nuts are in there. The outer ones are easy because they're the 1/4 inch ones. But we'll just start with the main. So we'll just go ahead and put all of these. And I noticed they have a little indent, and that looks like it goes toward the bottom side. So it must be like a stop washer at some point on the metal. So this is terrifying. We have to get all of these washers, and then worse, these. Joel came up with this idea, and I think it's actually a really good one. That's like old machinist, like salt of the earth trick. But Kevin said, why not put Halimar in the socket? If these tricks just like, okay, all right. This is the most enjoyable, controversial part of torque values for these. Now, what's really neat is you can go to like the ARP or anything really. Bolts are metal, and different bolt numbers have different metal alloys. That is a standard. So what that means is that each of those different grades of bolts will stretch, called yielding, at a certain point where you can't go past that. If you look up any bolt, there's a standard torque spec for those bolts. Now, what we're going to do on this, right or wrong, is we're going to be doing these main 3/8 bolts here, 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 here. And then we'll do the same thing with the 5/16. These standard 3/8 are going to end up being about 45 foot-pounds of torque. The 5/16 are going to be 24, and then the 1/4 inch are going to be 12. Okay, that is 44 foot-pounds of torque on the main ones, 24 on the secondary ones. The really cool part about the way they did this is they decided to put tons of holes in their oil pan. There are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes. Now these are very interesting because these are actually under pressure. Oil comes in from the tank here, so these two have like pulled oil in, It pressurizes it and then pushes it, goes all the way to the back right here and sends it up into the oil filter, which is sitting on the top of the motor. What I'm gonna do is put this guy in like this. There's this C-clip channel below it, and this allows you to kind of make sure it's gonna stay in its place. The ones on this side are where all the oil comes out of the pan that's being vacuumed out. It has these little screens, so the inside of these little baskets should technically fill with bearing material when we blow the motor. But those go in like so. Lock and load. Everything is, to our knowledge, done on the very bottom of the motor. There's an alternator here, water pump here, and the oil pump here. We'll come back to that. Kevin and I yesterday spent a lot of time going through what each of these things are. This is the temp sensor for the oil. So there's oil blowing through here. This is actually oil coming from the pump on the bottom, goes through the casting, comes up through here, goes inside of a filter, filters oil, and sends it to these two things. This one goes both to the front and the rear of the motor. That's why you get oil temp. And then one side sprays it up and out into the gears, but then the other side sprays it down here, and that's oil as well. These are the slide throttles. And the whole goal is peak efficiency at wide open throttle. There's no butterfly valve, and you know, it's kind of weird when you're at partial throttle, but peak efficiency at peak throttle. This is the oil filter, which puts dirty oil in the middle and it goes outward, and this casing is showing you what it's trying to do. It's preventing it from expanding. Instead, normally Kev pointed out that this thing is on the inside of oil filters. As the oil goes in, trying not to collapse it. It goes inside of here, and it does some really interesting things, because you'd think that one goes to the outside of this, therefore that's inlet, and that is not the case at all. This is the inlet, zigzags through here, and it goes into the center and then pours out. That. I wonder if there's an O-ring that goes on the bottom of that. Like this one's O-ring there, and then O-ringed. Oh. I'm very qualified. I'm the biggest. I am the most. This is the biggest cause of the biggest wear item on these engines. That is the intake cam. It's on the intake side, and there's 2 valves per piston. But what's going on is at 14,000 RPM, this is slamming down so hard on that spring, and the spring has to be so stiff so it doesn't float and do the weird shit that piston engines do that I don't like. These are very aggressive, and those springs are the number one wear item. You're talking about, I think it's like $4,000 as of a couple of years ago prices for every 100 hours. Some people grind these down, but then the guys at Cosworth said don't do that.
Kev now has the water pump, the oil pump, and the alternator all on a stick. We're gonna put that on this side of the motor.
Anybody want head? I have shortened this O-ring the slightest bit. This whole plate's been oiled, cleaned off, and it is ready to go. This turbo vacuum line has to be there, and then everything else we'll figure out as we go. But this should just take all that off. Kev clocked the alternator completely wrong. This piece actually peekaboos out here, And this goes up here, and then it goes through all of this nook and cranny. The alternator comes through here, or it goes through the exhaust or down outside of the engine. That thing needs to be protected at all costs. So we have to pull that whole assembly off, reclock it. Kind of a conversation piece about if this is lighter than the billet 4-rotor. The billet 4-rotor is 247 pounds. Kev said he can lift this.
I actually just did.
No, I think the camera needs to see you snap 3 vertebrae.
Oh,
Oh shit! Oh shit!
those two didn't lift off the ground, but you did lift that side, so yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
He did
Yeah.
that way too. It's like 500 pounds.
All right, now it's your turn. Can you get higher than him?
We're gonna get this off of the stand and put the other part back on, so open-ended things aren't open-ended. Bolt everything that we can to this. That way, we finally have all the shit in the shop condensed. That is actually
That was a lot lighter once we got it off the stand.
even without putting any tension on this O-ring, it is just slightly too long. Boom. That's how much it's swelled. This is something that Tyson showed me. That primer. And then just using normal glue. That is now on there. This is a pretty damn complicated part. It's got coolant channels all connected to each other, oil in and out, oil in, bearings. So this little guy, oil onto this, oil onto that, there. So then, once that's in there, then that would allow me to put this one in after that, put that in just a little bit more, and there's the snap ring right there. The ball end on this actually came in clutch, that I was able to get that in there and align the pump. So this one should now go in super easy. Yeah, there, see it.
Ooh.
Okay. The only thing that prevents us from really getting this car on the path of firing it up, this goes to the fuel pump. A little square drive. That should just, now that I've pushed that one in, pop in, put the 2 C-clips in, put all this shit in. Looking good. This is one of the most important parts, and it is where the oil and the blow-by air come out of the motor. The double O-ring, that's one of my favorite things there. This is oil feed to the pump. And then this bolts right there.
Oh, that's sick.
So the engine sits there with its little baby tank strapped to it. No hoses, just all hard lines and O-rings. That has been a moment I've been waiting for so long. That's incredible.
That's really cool.
So with the engine here, my brother gone, it is time to put on the intake manifold. Now this is as simple as it gets right now, but we're missing a lot of the pieces. It simply sits on top like so. Now, what's stopping it from popping back off? Nothing. And I love popping off. But in this case, that's not gonna get us very far. So there's the injector fuel rail. 2 injectors per cylinder. So there's 16 injectors just on the motor. Funny enough, since we waited long enough, these are Bosch 380s, and these plug into those. It's kind of a 2-part process, and I'm going to show you out here because in the engine is very difficult. This actually bolts onto the engine, and then the intake manifold sits on top of this, and it bolts to these 4
Oh, wow.
things here. This is the throttle position sensor, and then each of these 2 arms control each of the slide throttles. Now this would have like a digital thing here that you could control this from here, but this is raw manual, and it goes to all this stuff over here. This whole system actually bolts into the cable back connected to my foot. Pretty nifty. So that puts this whole intake manifold back on. We found this at the Newman Haas garage sale. Problem is,
That don't fit.
it don't fit. So this is one of my favorite finds of all time. This is the infamous 9th throttle body. This one now, as you can tell, is meant to be right there. And then, as you can imagine, this bolts on right there. So we now have everything necessary from an airflow standpoint from the turbo to get air into here. This 9th throttle body is actually not controlled the way you'd imagine. It has no physical linkage to this. So it is not like, hey, you close them all, open them all, close them all, open them all. What it does is it works in conjunction with the turbo to help with boost response. You would close this, have the front of the turbo closed as well, which is really wild. And then you can have the turbo spool really fast. Open this up, turbo now can throw tons of air in immediately, and you've got instant boost from a much larger turbo. All that's still used in current F1 stuff, so it's not like a gimmick from the 90s. It actually works really well. With this engine almost completely ready to go, it's finally time to put it in the chassis. Now I've got a couple things to do up here, but for all intents and purposes, this is a beautiful milestone, and we have a completed engine.
Wait, so if this is the engine for the car, what's that?
I don't know.